Eyeless Jack. Click, click, click. Jack continued pressing the button on the remote idly, watching the different channels pop up before changing again. Nothing really came on during the weekends, surprisingly. Nothing but paid programming, the other TV shows he didn't enjoy. The college student rose up from his couch, making his way to the desk, resting against the wall next to his bed. He was already done with homework, finishing most of it in class that day. Unlike his roommate, Jack could get his crap done fast enough to have the rest of the day to do whatever he wanted. He wasn't really feeling it to playing video games. Didn't really want to go out anywhere either. So he swiped his black hoodie off his chair. Jack slipped it on, grabbing his dorm keys, shoving them in his pocket after closing the door behind him. A nice walk around the campus should do the trick. Fresh air usually calmed him. If not, helped him think. Lately he'd been feeling different. He knew it wasn't his body, or college itself. He didn't have any girlfriends to worry about either. He just felt different without any explanation. It gave him a headache. He was thinking so hard. Jack rubbed his temples, pushing the door leading outside with his foot. A gust of wind swept across, slamming the door behind him. It was around 6 p.m. The sky was mixed with both orange and blue. The further the sky grew, the darker it got. Curfew, surprisingly, was 12 o'clock midnight. He never really questioned it vocally, but always wondered why it was so late. Usually, curfew was around 8 p.m. where he lived. "Hi, Jack." The male looked up to see one of the girls in his class. She most likely left class, considering she still had her boat bag on her shoulder. Jack half smiled and rose a hand to greet her. It was, what was her name? Jenny Smith. "Hey Jenny, just now leaving class?" Jenny smiled and nodded her head, adjusting the strap. "Yeah, it's pretty late. What made you stay so long?" The girl's smile lost its brightness for a split second before reviving. "Oh, just a study session. We have finals coming up soon, you know." "Best to stay on the ball," she giggled before tucking her hair behind her ears. "What are you doing out here anyway? It's gonna storm tonight." Jack shrugged his shoulders before eyeing the sky, smelling the air for moisture. Yep, it would rain any second. Just came out for some fresh air is all. Got my homework done for everything in class. Didn't feel like playing any video games or watching TV, so I came out here. Jenny nodded her head every so often, showing him she was paying attention. She smiled again. "Well, you got your air. I gotta go though. See you later." Before Jack could reply with a goodbye, the girl quickly dashed off past him, following the sidewalk up around the side of the dorms. Jack rose a brow in curiosity, his mind zipping with questions, only to have it cut off by a drop of rain, then another, and another. "Crap," he muttered, running back to the door to get inside, not wanting to get too soaked in the rain. Another slam of the door rose up behind him. Jack startled, shaking his fingers through his hair, sending water droplets everywhere, while wiping off the rain from his face and jacket. As he made his way back up to his dorm room, Jack finished fishing through his pockets for his keys, whistling a random tune while he traveled up the 2 flights of stairs, listening to his tune echo throughout in all directions. It's kind of creepy that he thought about it. Where was everyone? It was too quiet for a Friday evening. Usually there were people up and about, lots of students. They must have stayed behind for tutoring. Maybe some went home for the weekend. Maybe people are already in bed in their dorms, being very, very quiet. Jack sighed as he began unlocking the door, shoving his keys back in his pocket. After the door closed behind him, "Yo, Greg, you here?" Nothing, no response, just the sound of rain hitting against the windows. "Huh. Guess he's studying too. That's a first." Jack made his way over to his bed, slumping down to get ready for sleep. He pulled off his hoodie, kicked off his shoes, and rolled over to face the wall, not wanting to bother with the covers. He just wanted some sleep. Closing his eyes, Jack slowly began dozing off. the rain practically lulling him to sleep. Praise Chernobog, for his blood-stained hands will save us all. He shall bring us closer to paradise. He is our Lord. Praise Chernobog. Praise Chernobog. Jack let out a gut-wrenching rasp for air, waking in a cold sweat. His eyes darted from one corner to the other before rising up from the spot he panted, feeling his hands tremble from the dream he just had. Jack looked around his room, relieved that his roommate Greg was still in his bed. He could tell he was fast asleep from the dreaded snoring that came out of him. He himself was surprised he could sleep through it. Slowly exhaling through his mouth, Jack rose up from the bed, staggering to the mini-fridge on the other end of the room. His mind was churning with questions. What kind of dream was that? Never had he experienced one so real. Grabbing a bottle of water from the mini-fridge, Jack began gulping down the bottle, not caring if he woke up Greg. Letting out a cold sigh, Jack tossed the now empty bottle into the recycling bin, now making his way to the bathroom. He stopped in front of the mirror, hands gripping the sides of the sink as he eyed himself. He was pale, eyes borderline bloodshot, groaning. He let his head hang low, fighting the urge to vomit. Man, what the heck, he murmured, running his hand across his forehead. That's what I get for playing all those survival horror games, he thought to himself, smiling slightly as he began brushing off the whole thing. Get it together, Jack. It's just a dream. Dreams don't come true. You've just been playing too much Silent House is all. No big deal. Just go back to sleep, get some decent rest. Easier said than done. That morning, Jack felt someone shake him awake. Dude, Jack, wake up, bro. You got to see this. Jack let out a tired, irritated groan from under the covers, slowly pulling them up to see what Greg wanted. The blonde grinned and flashed his phone in front of his face. Guess you got laid last night. It was a picture of some topless girl on his lap posing for the camera. She looks drunk, Jack muttered, sleepily running his hand through his hair, wiping the sleepies from his eyes. Greg blew air through his pressed lips, rolling his eyes as he closed the phone. You're just jealous. Bull crap. I'd rather have a life than get some chick pregnant in college. Touche, good sir. Touche, good sir. But screw you. I use protection. Whatever. Jack pulling his covers over his head, feeling the weight of his friend rise up off his bed. Good. He could finally get some sleep. Dude, I had this weird dream last night. Jack paused when his mind processed the words, weird dream. Then he was instantly awake. Really? Me too, what was it about? Greg shrugged his shoulders, his fingers flying across the numbers on his cell phone, forming a text to his girlfriend. I had a dream where my grandma blew up like a balloon and started chasing me around with a giant fly swatter. Jack's fear and anxiety dropped. He turned his head to look at her. What the heck, dude? Greg laughed, snapping his cell phone shut. I know, right? Friggin' hate that hag. Wouldn't surprise me if she completely hates me, too. Broke so much crap in her house as a kid. Jack rolled his eyes, fully pulling the covers over his head, wanting to get more sleep in. Greg looked over and rose a brow. You said that you had a weird dream, too, right? You remember it? Jack laid there in silence, wanting him just to leave already. The blonde furrowed his brow and began nudging Jack's back with his foot. Come on! Tell me, I know you're awake. He said, I had a dream about some guy preaching. And you say my dream was weird. I never said your dream was weird. But it is. Anyways, go on. Greg pulled his knees up, resting his arms on them as he listened. Jack sighed and rose up from his sleep. There was this guy preaching about some guy named Chernobog and how he would lead everyone to paradise with his bloodstained hands. They were dressed in these weird-looking robes and wore these weird masks. Jack looked over at his friend, watching him give a weirded out look. Bro, you played way too much Silent House. Jack smiled a little, shrugging his shoulders. relieved that his friend had said his thoughts the night before. What can I say? I love horror games. Jack spent most of his morning studying for finals, wanting to get school-related crap out of the way before he enjoyed his weekend. Greg left to meet up with his girlfriend, telling Jack he'd be back around 6. It was usually on Sundays when the two sat down together and played one of the many video games they had until it was time for bed. For Jack, that is. Sighing, he turned over to the last page of his notes, memorizing his handwriting slowly. Suddenly, a knock at the door tore him from his studying. Jack turned his head and eyed the door, then rose up from his desk to his room. Pulling it open, he was surprised to see Jenny standing in front of the door. "Oh, hey, Jenny." Jenny smiled and waved. "Hey, Jack, what are you doing inside on Saturday?" Jack looked back to his desk before returning his gaze back at the girl. "I'm getting my study done earlier so I can enjoy the rest of the day with rest and relaxation." Jenny nodded her head understandingly and placed her hands on her hips. "Well, I'm sure you've done enough of that. You should come outside. Everyone's doing something today." Jack mentally sighed in relief. Good, so people were here today. "I'll come out when I'm done, I guess." Jenny giggled and nodded again. "Okay, see you later." And just like that, the student was gone in a flash. Jack smiled a little before closing the door, making his way back to his desk. He sat down and began rereading the page of notes, keeping everything fresh in his mind. Then it hit him. How did Jenny know where his dorm room was? They never really spoke to each other, let alone shared dorm numbers. Kinda gave him a creepy feeling at first, but then his realist side thought otherwise. Maybe she saw you go into your room once without you noticing. Maybe Greg had told her what room he lived in, and it just so happened him and Greg had shared rooms. Shaking his head in frustration, Jack rubbed his temples. "You're just overanalyzing everything, Jack. No need to fret over the pointless stuff," he said to himself, running his fingers through his hair. Maybe he was done studying for the day. Again. He swiped his hoodie up off his chair and slipped it back on along with his shoes before heading outside. When he got to the bottom of the stairs, he felt himself breathe another sigh of relief. He was glad to see how many students were up and about. Good to know he wasn't going crazy. He watched as some people played ball, tossing a football or baseball. Girls were huddled in groups outside, talking about Lord knows what. Not that he cared. He was just happy to see people. Just then, a hand crept over his shoulder. Jack looked back to see, and it was none other than Jenny. Again. "Oh, hey Jenny," the girl smiled. "Looks like you took my advice and came out of that dark room, eh?" Jack smiled nervously, giving a nod or two. "You should hang out with me and my friends. We're gonna go for a walk in the woods." Jack rose a questioning brow. "For what?" Jenny laughed. "We're just hanging out at our place. Come on, Jack, don't be a wuss." Jack felt a little hesitant at first, but he slowly came around and agreed to follow. Jenny grabbed him by the hand and began tugging him along, making sure he was close. "Hooray! Off to the cave!" "The cave?" Jack said, watching the forest grow bigger and bigger with every step. "Our hangout, silly. Sarah found it at the beginning of the year, so we decided to make it our hangout area." "Us?" Jack asked again, looking back over his shoulder, watching the school get slowly consumed by trees. "Me, Sarah, Bobby, Fred, and Luna." "You ask a lot of questions." Jack couldn't help but let out a nervous laugh. "Sorry, I don't mean to. I've been having a rough weekend is all." Jenny looked back at him and smiled. "It's okay, we all have our days." As minutes passed, the two walked around what seemed like an invisible path that only Jenny could see. Jack couldn't help but begin to worry. He was about to open his mouth and ask another question, until the girl released his hand, punching her fist into the air. "We're here!" she sang, running ahead of the boy. Jack looked up to see a rather large cave next to the babbling brook. He watched as two girls and boys appeared from inside it, greeting Jenny happily, until they saw Jack. Their smiles faded and they began leaning into Jenny, whispering while keeping their eye on him. Jack felt a little nervous, feeling as if he shouldn't be there at all, and that he should just go back to his dorm room playing Silent House. But Jenny looked back as well, gesturing him to come forwards, like it was okay. The brunette took his way over, eyeing everyone but Jenny. All of them didn't look too pleased, despite their forced smiles. Hey! Jack rose a hand, giving a wave. Sarah eyed him before crossing her arms. Hi, she said bluntly. Hey, said Bobby and Luna. Sup? Fred smiled, shoving his hands into his pockets. What's he doing here, Jen? I thought it was just going to be you. Jenny rolled her eyes at Sarah's statement and wrapped an arm around Jack, her free hand patting him on the chest. I thought it would be cool if you guys could meet Jack. He's a really cool guy, honest. Luna and Bobby looked at one another while Fred nodded. I've heard about him. Straight A student, smart kid. Fred walked over to Jack and began leading him inside of the cave, rambling on about what kind of video games he liked, leaving the group outside. Sarah shot daggers towards Jenny, and Jenny gave a stink eye at that. What the heck do you think you're doing? Letting outsiders in, Jen? You can't let them in, too. He's not going to find anything out. Be nice for a change, Sarah. Sarah glared, then mumbled under her breath, following after Fred. Luna and Bobby soon watched and went with them. The group settled inside. Everyone huddled around a fire in a circle. Jack sat in between Jenny and Fred, while the others completed their small circle. Jack felt uncomfortable, especially with Sarah giving him dirty looks every so often. But surprisingly, the evening wasn't all too bad. Everyone got to know a little bit more about him, asking questions and talking about what they enjoyed doing, talking about schools and exams. Jack looked around the cave as they spoke. It was nice inside. They had tables and desks and places where they had books set up. They even had a compartment for food. It really was a place to hang out. I guess I worried about nothing, Jack thought, smiling at the comment Fred made. There was a sudden clap of thunder from the distance, causing the group to look up from the entrance to the cave. Another storm? Sarah complained, rising up with a book bag over her shoulder. I'm leaving. Last thing I want to do is get caught in the storm. Bye. Sarah turned on heel and ran over to her bike, resting against a tree, and then rode back up to the school. Bobby and Luna both rose up, going together. We don't want to get wet either. We'll catch you guys later, okay? Luna said, smiling over at Jack and the others. The duo both pulled their book bags up off the ground, running off trying to beat the storm. Fred didn't move. I'm gonna stay here for a bit. There's some things I need to do. You guys can go ahead if you want. Jack looked up to Jenny before getting up off the stool. Yeah, I'm probably gonna go back too. Greg's probably wondering where I am. Jenny smiled up at him and nodded. Okay, I'm gonna help Fred. Just follow the same path back to the school. I'll see you later, Jack. Jack smiled and waved goodbye to the two. He too, making his way out of the cave and into the forest. It shouldn't be too hard to get back if he followed Luna and Bobby from afar. An hour passed. Jack began unlocking the dorm with his keys, opening up the door to find Greg on his laptop on the sofa. Greg looked up and smiled. Yo, Jack, where you been? He asked, surprised that Jack had stepped out altogether. I was invited to some secret base in the forest behind the school, he replied, closing the door behind him, while he began kicking off his shoes. Greg rose a brow, closing his laptop. Oh, really? Invited by who? You know that girl, Jenny, from our first period class? Greg's smile slowly faded. Dude, she's weird. Jack furrowed his brow in confusion. What do you mean she's weird? Weird like how? Greg looked away nervously before answering. You know what kind of crap she reads? She, books upon books about this freaky frickin' cults, man. I crap you not. Jack rolled his eyes before walking back over to his dresser. Dude, I'm serious. You probably shouldn't hang out with her. People who read that crap are messed up in the head. Yeah, whatever, Jack replied, rummaging through his clothes. I'm gonna take a shower. We have another storm coming. Greg blinked and looked back out their window. Aw, man, really? I was gonna go out with Gabby tonight, he moaned sadly, watching the clouds churn into a deep gray. Jack chuckled at his friend before going to the shower. Jack, wake up! Wake up, Jack! Jack felt Greg shake him, groaning in anger. What is it? He looked up at the nervous Greg. Greg looked over at the window. Dude, someone's out in the forest lighting fires! Jack rubbed his eye with his palm. Do what? Greg, someone is outside lighting fires. Look! Greg pulled him out of his bed and pointed towards the forest. Jack sighed, still rubbing his eyes before looking out the window. To his surprise, there was a fire lit. But it was far back into the woods, almost where the area of Jenny's secret base was. Well, I'll be screwed. There is a fire, he muttered, noticing that the storm had stopped. What time is it? 2 a.m. We should go check it out. That looks like it's where the little hideout is. Greg gave Jack a freaked out look of, are you out of your freaking mind? What? I'm sure there's a perfectly good explanation for why someone's out there lighting fires. Yeah, for cults. Jack shot him a look. Dude, get over yourself. There is no cult. I call bullcrap. I'm not going. Jack smirked. You chicken? He asked, watching Greg get flustered. Dude, seriously, don't go. Last thing you want is getting in trouble. Jack rolled his eyes. Whatever, I'm gonna go check it out. If there's anything wrong, I'll report it to the dean. Jack changed out of his pajamas, dressing in jeans and blue t-shirt, along with his black hoodie and shoes. Pulling out their emergency flashlight from the desk drawer, Jack walked over to the door. See you in a bit, he called out, watching Greg shake his head. Curiosity killed the cat, man. The cat, he called back, watching the door close. Jack pulled his hood up over his head and began making his way down the stairs. It was probably that Jenny and her friends were out there, hanging out at their spot late at night. I mean, loads of people do that, right? The second he walked outside, Jack felt the air shift from damp to chilly. He began making his way towards the forest, using his flashlight as much as he could to follow the path Jenny had led him down the previous day. Jack started growing nervous, listening to the sounds of life and night in the forest. Easy now, Jack. There's absolutely nothing that can hurt you in this forest. Nothing. Minutes passed as Jack finally began getting closer to the cave Jenny showed him before. He could see the dim light from afar and talking. Loud talking. But it didn't sound like Jenny or Bobby or anyone else from their group. The closer he got, the clearer the voice. Turning off his flashlight, Jack peeked around the tree. What he saw shook him to his core. There, standing outside the cave, was a group of robed people. Judging by their height, they were students, both male and female. They all wore black robes and blue mouthless masks with big eyeless holes. One of them began stepping up to the podium. He raised his hands in the air. Thank you, my brothers and sisters, for joining me this night of nights. Tonight is the night we summon our Lord Chernabog. The group below him cried and called out things like, Praise Chernabog! All hail Chernabog! Tonight is the night where Chernabog will choose his sacrifice, the one who will lead us to paradise and set us free from this hell. The group of students began cheering and chanting the name of Chernabog. Jack shook his head in disbelief, slowly backing up from the tree he hid behind. Oh my lord, there really is a cult, he murmured. Jack turned back to run away to the school, only to be stopped by Jenny, who was standing there the whole time. Jenny? Thank God you're here, Jack ran over to him. There's this cult thing. We gotta go tell someone. Jenny smiled. Cult? There is no cult, Jack. You're just overreacting, she chuckled, suddenly feeling Jack shake her by the arms. No, listen to me. We need to get out of... Jack's words were cut off by a rock against his head. His eyes fluttered slightly, stumbling back before collapsing onto the ground with a thud. Blurry figures began circling around him. As he watched, Jenny smiled at him. Then everything went black. Jack awoke from a bucket of cold water being dumped over his head. Blood trickled down the side of his head, onto his ear, down the side of his face. He winced, feeling his head throb in pain. The second he remembered the last thing he saw, he gasped, looking up to see he was sitting in front of everyone. His arms were held firmly behind his back. The leader of the cult walked up in front of him and smiled under his mask. Chernobog has found his sacrifice. Hail Chernobog, he called, listening as the group repeated the phrase. Jack attempted to struggle, the pain in his head fighting against him. You shall become one of his sons, the chosen one to live upon this wretched world and do his bidding. The group cried the phrase once more. Jack shook his head as fast as he could. No, all of you are crazy, let me go, he yelled, letting out a yelp of pain from his arms being twisted. The leader laughed, turning to the group behind him. Come, my brothers and sisters, help me change this believer, this non-believer, into the son of Chernobog. The group chanted the phrase, stepping closer to form a large circle around him. Praise Chernobog, for his blood-stained hands will bring salvation to us all. He shall bring us closer to paradise. He is our Lord, our King. Praise Chernobog, praise Chernobog, he cried once more. Jack listened as the group began chanting in a different language. He felt his heartbeat start to race, watching one of the group members walk before him with a tray of tools and other queer objects. The person pulled their mask off, revealing it to be Jenny. She smiled, taking a spoon from the tray. Isn't this great, Jack? The great Lord Chernobog has chosen you to be his son. Jack shook his head, tears flooding his eyes. I never knew you'd be the one. No, Jenny, no, please don't do this, he begged, watching her stop in front of him. She giggled, placing her hand on his forehead. All hail Chernobog. The girl then stabbed the spoon into his left eye, ignoring the cries of pain that Jack let out. He squirmed and struggled against the two who held him down, feeling his eye being gorged out of its socket. Hold still, Jack. You're gonna make me kill you, Jenny said with complete calmness as she began working on his other eye, watching blood spurt and trickle down his face, still ignoring his cries and pleas. The leader stepped in, holding a bowl of black hot ooze in his hands. Behold, the sight of Chernobog, he called, watching Jenny hold his head still as he began to pour the tar-like liquid inside of his eyes. Jack let out a blood-curdling scream of pain, feeling the substance overflow and trickle down his eyelids. Placing his hand on Jack's forehead, the leader began chanting in the same language as the others had been earlier, watching as Jack's body became limp and lifeless. He watched as Jenny held a book open to some passage of a different language. Rise, our Lord Chernobog. Rise, take this vessel and sacrifice we give you. Give yourself to this vessel and be one with it. Rise, Lord Chernobog. Rise, 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 they chanted. Panting heavily, Jack rose up from the now dead body of Bobby, yanking off the mask he wore like the others. Standing up, he looked over the massacre he created. Every single person was dead. Masks torn off, throats slashed, guts wide open, eyes gorged out, his hood and pants stained with blood, scalpel in hand. Jack turned to the last survivor, Jenny, borderlining death, watched as he stepped above her. His skin had turned black, teeth sharpened to a point, nails long and sharp. He wasn't human anymore. She smiled, blood leaking from her mouth as she spoke. Release me into lasting paradise. Jack growled in a low tone, teeth showing. You don't deserve paradise. None of you do. He knelt down, swiping the mask from the ground. Burn. All of you. Jenny watched as he pulled the mask on, the black substance trickling down onto the mask from his eyes. She grabbed a hold of his ankle weakly, begging to be released. Before walking off into the shadows, she cried, her tears rolling down her face as she called out to him until her last breath. This just in. A group of students have been slaughtered at the West Point College. Autopsy reports everyone's kidneys have been removed for reasons unknown. Many believe it has something to do with supposed cultist acting at the school. Student Jack Nicholas has been reported missing, more tonight at 9. And that was the end.